Aosis stands for the Alliance of Small Island States and is a coalition of small island and low-lying coastal countries from across the world. Aosis acts as a negotiating body that represents the interests of these states at the level of the UN. Aosis has no formal charter nor no regular budget. Instead, it functions on the basis of diplomatic consultation and consensus, with a chairman being selected from one of the countries every 3 years.
There are currently 39 members of Aosis, as well as 5 observers. The motivating factor that formed Aosis is the danger of the effects of climate change. Due to their nature as small islands, these states are isolated and vulnerable to differing effects of climate change. This problem is worsened due to the fact that they also hold a very small amount of political influence, and so their concerns on climate change can be easily ignored. By banding together and forming Aosis, they are able to make their voice stand out more and wield greater influence and power in the discussion over what to do about climate change. Aosis has been an active member of the UNFCCC and was among the first to ratify for its creation, as well as for the Kyoto Protocol. During the negotiations, Aosis has pursued legally binding targets to stabilize greenhouse gas emissions, especially for developed countries. The reason for this is that island states are micro-contributors to greenhouse gas emissions, being responsible for approximately less than 0.6% of all total emissions, but are among the most vulnerable to the effects of climate change. This means that they depend on larger and more developed countries to limit their emissions. Aosis are strong supporters of the polluter pays scheme, which holds the countries with the higher greenhouse gas emissions to be more responsible and argues that they need to make the greatest sacrifices. As its member states lack the financial and technological means for adaptation to climate change, Aosis also supports adaptation tools and financing such as the Green Climate Fund, which sees the developed countries assist states that are vulnerable to the impacts of climate change and are less able to adapt on their own. These are forms of the common but differentiated responsibility principle upon which the UNFCCC is based on. In negotiations within the UNFCCC, Aosis takes a humanitarian and moral position by presenting themselves as the innocent victims of the developed countries' actions. This argument is further supported by the use of scientific evidence showing what the impacts of climate change are, and how vulnerable island states are to these impacts. As the climate change agenda has grown and become more complex, domestic politics has caused tensions to begin to appear within Aosis, with its members sometimes negotiating as individual parties, rather than as part of the coalition. This is because each island state has different priorities and different interests, and they also face different problems from the impacts of climate change. For example, some may be more concerned about the issue of sea level rise and saltwater intrusion, and others more impacted by the increased frequency of storms, or by coral bleaching. Despite these tensions, Aosis is still currently strong and unified. That Aosis has managed to gain significant influence and become a key party in the global climate negotiations is a testament to its success. Individually, these small island concerns would likely have been drowned out by the larger and richer countries. Aosis has even managed to gain a special seat on the COP Bureau of Negotiations, a key example of its success in the UNFCCC. It has even been important in shaping the discourse around climate change and in formulating the various agreements that the COPs have reached, such as the Kyoto Protocol or the Bali Roadmap. However, while Aosis has played an active role in the global climate negotiations, there is still some question as to how successful it has really been. Despite having campaigned for strong action on climate mitigation and adaptation since its very formation, there is still to this day no legally binding target limits for carbon emissions, nor any other hard and effective mechanism to help reduce and stop climate change. The development of a new treaty to replace the Kyoto Protocol has even been delayed and pushed back to a later date, not once but numerous times.
Negotiations around climate change have begun to stall and slow down as it now requires the larger and more developed countries to begin making sacrifices and compromises to actually make a difference. Despite its arguments and its role in the UNFCCC, Aosis can only do so much as it relies on others to make changes to help them.